This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 816, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you who are boosted and thoughtful and helpful, considerate, and thinking of others. Hello and welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 816. My name is Connor Kilpatrick, and I am here with my co-host Josh Flanagan.
What's up? What's up? What's good, people?
And our semi-regular guest host, fill-in, third chair host, Ryan Haupt.
I'm not wearing tweed, but I am wearing a scarf.
When's the last time we did three people on the show? It's been a while.
Like a month ago? Or it was just him and I? That was just
800?
800, I
Yeah,
think.
it was
Yeah.
probably 800.
Yeah.
16
I
episodes
mean,
ago.
I wouldn't remember.
That's not a regular show.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I gotta tell you, I had a really hard time with the script and what I was gonna write before Ryan's name.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't think of anything that really covered it. That didn't sound dismissive or like it was like our friend. No, that's not informal enough.
He's not our friend, really.
Guest host, he's not host. That's not exactly right. That's why I came up with the brilliant marketing term semi-regular guest host. I think guest is wrong.
To be fair, I wrote that. You actually just left me out of the script when you sent it. I wasn't in it.
Really?
That makes more sense.
I remember writing.
It was just blank when you sent it. I had to write I wrote semi-regular guest host myself. That is a self-imposed title.
I definitely struggle with that. I wonder. That's interesting. I think we came up with the same kind of thing. But I have a thing sometimes where I'll be working on a script and for some reason the version I send is earlier. I don't know.
Every
why.
once in a while, I think there's a thing where if you attach it to the email before you save it, things get weird. I've noticed.
Maybe that's it. Anyway, go along. We're iFanboy.
We are iFanboy. Every week we read a bunch of comics, or this week less comics, and one of us picks our favorite book called the Pick of the Week, and we talk about that book and other books in the week, and the Patron Pick, and sometimes listener mail. We have a good time. We got a lot to talk about, so we're going to get going. Here's your spoiler warning. This is a review show. Josh had the pick this week.
Yeah, I definitely sent this before I saved it. Justice League 2022 Annual Number 1 is the pick of the week. My justifications are thus. I had no expectations of this book. In fact, I was almost like, do I want to even keep reading this Justice League book? And then I kind of saw it was an annual, and I said, well, all right, let's take a look at this. It probably stands on its own, or it's going to do a different thing. And I right away, the art was different. It was Sanford Green who did the book with David. No, he did. David F. Walker.
He did the David Walker image book, Bitter Root.
Right, and they did Iron Fist and Power Man before that.
Yep.
And I mean, I noticed the art before I noticed the name, but right away, in terms of, and then the colorists were Matt Herms, who I don't know, and Sanford Green, the artist himself. And I thought, oh, this looks different and exciting than it has looked for a while. So that was my first sort of hook.
It looked like a top shelf book, and not just because of Sanford Green's art, who's terrific, but the way they colored it, and it almost looked like it was distressed, like it was on rough paper. Oh.
You said top shelf, and I was thinking Top Cow, and I was like, what the hell are you talking about? No. Yes, I agree with what you're saying. I was like, it doesn't look like Top Cow at all.
Also, the lettering, we should point out, from Josh Reed. All of it together made it look like it was an indie comic, which was great.
It did. Yeah, it was really cool.
I mean, honestly, a lot of times you can tell a Brian Bendis book just from looking at a page for whatever reason. The way that he puts his dialogue, and some of that's there, but it doesn't look like a Brian Bendis book.
Yeah, the way the words balloons stack in a Brian Bendis book kind of has its own rhythm.
But also it just doesn't look like the kind of artist that he normally works with. I don't know how to explain it, but so a lot of things came together there, and I love Brian Bendis. Brian Bendis is an integral part of my comic book reader DNA, and I want these to work out really well. And so you got this time traveler story. OMAC, Kirby's one-man army corps, shows up, and I'm going to tell you right now, don't fully understand the story or what happened. But
did you read the first issue of Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes?
No.
This ties into it, but it tied into it in such a subtle way that I didn't even actually realize they were connected until the end, when they also pointed out, go read Justice League versus Legion.
I did see that
series, which already happened. Yeah.
But I didn't feel like I was missing anything. In fact, I just was like, oh, we're in the middle of a Justice League Super Friends adventure, and it's crazy.
No, I mean, it's basically a one shot.
Travel.
It's a lead into that miniseries, but you don't need to have read it because it takes place after. But yeah, you could totally read this as just a single story, which it basically is.
Yeah.
Well, it's time travel, so who can really say?
Right.
Yeah, and it was actually pretty. So you've got this one character who's showing up, a Lord of Time, not a Time Lord. That's a different thing, and there's several versions of him from different times throughout his life. It's confusing. It's hard for me to explain. So if you're like, you don't know what you're talking about, you're correct. I don't. But they split the team up, and they each go, deal with him. Different parts of him deal with different ages of the person. And even though I was hanging on by my fingernails, I was super compelled with the gosh, good old superhero aspect of the whole thing. There's also little character things that Bendis has put into his Justice League that I think help solidify some of the characters in my mind, or at least these versions of them. So, he brought in Black Adam as a Justice Leaguer, and we know that there's going to be a movie and it's The Rock and whatever. So making Black Adam fully evil isn't going to be a thing, but they're kind of turning around. I like the story that they attached to the way that they were doing it. The idea is basically that, one of the time travelers said, "So wait, where are you in the Black Adam, Teth Adam series? Are you the evil one, or have you become the greatest ever?" And the idea is that we're learning that he's on some continuum where he's on his way somewhere.
Which, I think that works if you have the wisdom of a god at your disposal, because there's always this weird interplay with Billy Batson, how much is he listening to Solomon versus being a dumb kid? And so I like that in the long arc of Black Adam's life, he maybe eventually learns to tap into that wisdom in a way that makes him a better person,
which is interesting. And it's not.
It is interesting.
And this is a thing where we've said that, if you're saying a story is preordained because there's this long history, a lot of times it's silly that they're putting these mythologies into a book that were never. This fits with this. It totally does. I remember really liking Black Adam as part of, I want to say it was Justice Society.
Justice Society, yeah, Jeff Johns. From
Jeff Johns, and so I like him. I like different versions of Black Adam, and I find it just to be really compelling. So I'm interested in reading that part of the story, and people don't kind of trust him, and the fact that a character who's thousands of years old can kind of learn and evolve and change. I don't know. There's something about that I like. It doesn't work with every character, but it works with this character to me, and probably partially because what Ryan is saying, you're imbuing him with all these powers. He wouldn't necessarily just go evil. I love the way that Aquaman is drawn in this book.
He's beefy.
Dad bought Aquaman.
Yeah, and he's just a beefy, sort of manly man of the sea. He could be a fisherman. He looks like a fisherman from Maine.
Oh yeah, that guy's hauling in nets for sure.
Yeah,
he looks like Russell Crowe from Gladiator body.
Ooh,
yeah, and that's great.
Russell Crowe.
I like that the Flash is. He's still got his sort of youthful energy, but he also has. They listen to him. About time travel. Tell us about this thing.
That was good. That was a good moment. Yeah.
It keeps going.
I like the Green Arrow and Black Canary have an almost paternalistic attitude towards John Kent.
Yeah.
Again, a good way, where they're looking out for him. He's way more powerful than they are, but they're like, hey, are you, you doing okay? Super Kid is down. I liked that they kind of had his back, even though he may or may not have needed it, but
they've really developed into an interesting, and this is across DC, not just this book. They've really developed into a good sort of veteran sort of couple, and they work together. It's like Coach and Mrs. Coach. Friday.
Yeah, they're the old pros.
They're a good team. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up, and I noticed, is that they drew Wonder Woman. Diana comes back, and they drew her mother, and made them look very not Caucasian. They looked more Greek.
Yeah, they looked Mediterranean.
I know they should, but it was very specific. I was like, oh, their faces look different than everybody else. They kind of look like they should. It doesn't look like, a white fashion model from the 60s. And it stood out. I thought, that's really interesting. That's sort of a subtle way of sort of confirming the diversity of those characters, through the art. Not crazy, but this is actually a little more appropriate. And I noticed it. And I noticed it in a way that wasn't distracting. I gotta say, I was just in love with the way this book looked. I was like, why isn't this guy doing more books? And I know he's doing that Image book or whatever, but I just remember how
it's just a solid Wonder Woman costume design too. It just looks great.
I just remember how much we loved that Iron Fist Empowerment.
Yeah, that was a great book. These are incredibly dynamic pages, in addition to the character work. There's a lot of pages you don't really see too often anymore. A lot of full page spreads that they sort of get away from because this is an annual, it's double size, so they have more real estate. Whereas a regular issue, you don't have time for maybe an impactful splash page, and so you get a lot more of that in here, which is nice.
I think it was 40 pages of story. End of the day, I expected nothing, and I thought, it wasn't the greatest comic ever. I might never think about it again until Sanford Green shows up again. I'm like, oh yeah, I really like that. But on a week, and I liked comics. I had several things I could have made pick of the week. None of them were 5s necessarily, but there are a lot of real strong 4s. And so that's why it's pick of the week.
I think this is also one of the better Bendis Justice League issues and better 100%. Sort of Justice League stories that we've had in a while. This is an issue you can pick up. You don't have to have been reading the Justice League book. You don't have to be reading anything else. You don't even have to have read Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes like Josh didn't. It's just a single issue, classic, evergreen Justice League story. That looks great.
100%.
It looks really great.
Yeah. So there's your pick of the week.
Nice little superhero party in the beginning.
It's a nice little superhero party.
Hawk girl, not the Hawkeye.
Speaking of.
Yeah, Hawkeye.
How about that for a transition? That was great. I nailed that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did. It's a segue. Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, number 4. I almost made this pick of the week. I have come around to at first I wasn't sure if I liked this series because it's written very millennially.
Because you're old. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, because I'm old. But I think that out of all the replacement characters that have taken place over the years, Kate Bishop was not one of those. She came from an earlier time. And 2, I think she kind of captures the essence of some of the things I liked about Hawkeye that he doesn't anymore.
The lovable fuck up.
Yeah, there really is something to it, and that the show didn't hurt, but I had been growing a soft spot for that character for a while. Perfect world, would I want her there? Would I want her called Hawkeye? I don't know, but I'm much less resistant to it than I used to be, and I just thought it was just fun. It was a good Kate Bishop story. I don't know any of the names that worked in this book other than Joey C. And it's this story where she's her sister, who she's got problems with, invites her to a exotic hotel destination or whatever, and there's supervillains and mind control and blah blah blah. But it was just kind of rompy and fun, and in a world after that, the TV series, and you were looking for more Kate Bishop comics, I think this is a pretty good place to go to. And I can't always say that about the Kate Bishop books that I've read. They've been sort of up and down.
I feel like it's also surprisingly rare for a comic to come out contemporaneously with the big media property to that actually supplements it well.
Yeah.
And this book, I think, kind of does that.
Yeah, and the art has a who am I thinking of? The Private Eye.
Marcos Martin.
Marcos Martin?
Yeah, sort of a Marcos Martin kind of feel to it. It's sort of like a Spanish artist. I don't know who these people are. But I was kind of surprised by it. At first I was like, I'm not sure I like this. And then I kept reading it and picking up the issues, and by the end I was looking forward to it. So yeah. But I mean, literally, I almost made it pick of the week. I was like, oh, it's really, again, sort of an unexpected sort of joy. I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm trying to find things that I like more, but it's just really good looking book too, compared to what you'd think.
I don't love the design or the way the dog is drawn.
With his big floppy lips.
Super nitpicky.
He's no longer a golden retriever.
No, he doesn't look like a golden retriever. He looks like a big hound, like a hunting, hound dog or something. Which is, I imagine that dogs that fall into the horses category of things artists, unless you love drawing them, you probably hate drawing them. And so I more than happy to let it slide. It stuck out to me as it just felt off model.
Is that a Dave Johnson cover? Janoy Lindsay. That's the correct dog on the cover.
Yeah.
But not interiorly. Connor, I assume you didn't read this.
No, I read the first issue and I hated it. And so I never read it.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but for some reason I kept going. But near the end.
I read the first issue and thought it was fine. And then when Josh put it on the script, I caught up last night. So
Did you find it was better than you thought it would have been?
It's middling to me.
Middling?
No, it's truly middling. I didn't not like it, but I wasn't super compelled by it. Like it, I think my pick of the week would have been the next book we're about to talk about if we need a transition.
Mine as well. Yeah.
That was that was also in contention. Go on.
Maestro World War N number 1.
Oh, geez.
Is the first issue of the third and final prequel miniseries from Peter David and Herman Peralta and Pasquale Ferry. That's the prequel series to Hulk Future Imperfect, the classic early 90s story that Peter David and George Perez did. And there's a nice little essay in the back about Peter David's relationship with George Perez, which was very sweet.
It was. I read that essay.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so did I.
And, I've complained about the essays, but like this one was like, let me tell you about
different.
I was like, oh, this is,
that wasn't
totally.
Here's why we did the book. This was my friend is sick and I feel sad about it. And it was very good. This has been great. Josh and I have talked about all these miniseries. Peter David still has it. If he was a new writer, I'd be like, this guy is terrific. Get him on everything. He still got it. And Herman Peralta is through these miniseries has become one of my favorite artists working at Marvel. And there's always a danger with prequel books where where it's heading, so it's not that interesting, exciting, message to Hollywood. But it's still a lot of fun to explore this world as we get to the Future Imperfect story, which Josh has never read. I think we're going to do as a Booksplode when this is over.
I've actually never read it either.
To sort of tap, maybe we'll get all three of us on to sort of cap off the whole story. But that's not a long book. I think those are 2 prestige comics. Whereas this is, this gets us flesh the world out. We get here we get Neymar, an awesome asshole Neymar, which you didn't think he could get more assholey, but then he has that facial hair because Neymar always finds a way.
That is a great design. Although I gotta say, and this might be on purpose, his sandals really bothered me.
Yeah,
toes, like either be barefoot or not, but those are just flip flops, and I was like, ugh. But then I was like, "You're Neymar." That's like he's like, "Oh, do my feet upset you?"
Right. It's like I'm too old to just wear a thong, but I'll find a way to put some thong elements into my outfit.
But also, he knew it would bother me.
Exactly.
Like, and wore them on purpose. Like that puts me off my game, and therefore he can dominate me.
It's a great design. I love the super obvious gills on his neck too. Like they don't always draw Neymar with those gills on his neck, and I don't know like canonically if he's supposed to have them or not, but like he's got to breathe underwater somehow, and so I just that as a design element I liked it.
So you've got Abomination joins the story. Doom is all fucked up from the last miniseries, and he's still in play. Rick Jones is going to become a factor.
That was my favorite page of the entire thing.
Old hobbled
he shows
Doom.
up in his wheelchair and he shows up to talk to Rick Jones. Jones is like, "Oh, hey, Steve, it's been ages." Oh, I was just like, that's so good. That is the best single panel of like a deep Marvel joke I've seen in the longest time. And because these guys are all old, like, they were enemies, but Doom is like, they know Rick. He knows Rick Jones. Like they're just like old. Like they used to work together almost. Yeah. And it's just that little bit of
they're old work friends.
Oh.
And then you have the Human Torch, the original Human Torch joins the fray, and then a reveal that Maestro's Major Domo, his second-hand guy, is actually Toro undercover. And I was like, yes, this is just dive deep, Peter David. Get them all in there. So you've got Maestro and original Human Torch and Toro and Neymar. It's actually very Invader-y. But
Toro has you're right. You're just missing Steve.
I thought this was terrific.
Toro has such a ridiculous hat. He looks like that character from Red Sonja. It's very silly, in a great way. I also think it was the last page. I think the last page is fantastic.
Yeah.
Human Torch, who's very formidable in this, comes back, and beats up Hulk, or, hits him really hard, and a flaming Hulk body just tears through the wrecked city, and it's such a beautiful drawing and composition and the color, and and he crawls his way out of the ashes. But like as we get to the end of it, it looks really rough and sketchy. That last page, which is sort of just what it, you could say, hey, maybe he was getting to the end of it, the deadline, but I'm going to say it was a creative choice.
He's all burnt up.
I like that. I know you're totally right, though. It looks rougher.
Yeah.
But in a way that works for the story, it's cool. And I think, if I remember correctly, the Jim Hammond Human Torch, his thing is like, if he's exposed to oxygen, he flames on. Like, he doesn't have as much control as Johnny, but I think in a way that also makes him more powerful.
Possibly, yeah.
That's why whenever he's introduced in a comic, he's always in like that glass tube, right? Because they have to keep him in an oxygen-free environment.
Well, later on, he's able to control it.
That's surprisingly good science for a Golden Age comic book.
Right. I think he's got control in terms of like, being able to fly and shoot flames and stuff like that. But I think there is an element of
no. If you recall,
he's more volatile, I guess.
If you the West Coast Avengers book that Josh and I did at the book split, he was on the team, just walking around in human form. Like he at some they had to give him
they've
control.
changed it over time.
Yeah.
Right, but originally that was sort of part of it, I think.
But here he has the
also I want to point out
whatever
the last page of this I was just talking about again. There's the yellow-orange color of the flame, and they did the sky and the ground slightly greenish instead of blue, and it just looks gorgeous. Like, it's really wonderful coloring, and the reflection of the flame off the Hulk, and it's
Jesus Bertoff and Matt Hollingsworth, great stuff.
That stuff goes unnoticed, and it shouldn't, because it's great.
Yeah. No, what I was saying about the Nova Flame was that he's, Ryan is saying he's more powerful, so he clearly has another level of power here. And this has been terrific. I love Smart Hulk here. I don't always love Smart Hulk in general, but the evolution of the character into Maestro, he's scarier because he is Banner plus Hulk at this point, which is not unusual for Hulk, but in this story, he makes him very formidable because he knows things.
So you're telling me that Doom, who is the master scientist and builder and sorcerer, has just an old rickety metal wheelchair. It's just
couldn't get
out of
or
Cuckoo's Nest.
Professor X, even the floating ones lying around.
Or maybe that's just the one that the butler put him into. What's he going to do? He can't fight back. Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 8.
Yeah. Story by Tom Taylor, art by John Torney. Inks. We got inks on this one by Raul Fernandez. Colors Federico Blue, and letters by Dave Sharp. You guys still reading this?
I was going to be out with this one after I finished it, but I saw it. The next issue is a 2-issue crossover with Nightwing, so I figured, well, I'm going to read that first part, so I'll finish it. But I'm basically done with this book.
I was like, did I already drop this book? Because I know I was thinking about it, but I didn't read it.
So what about it isn't working for you guys?
The foundational concept offends me.
True.
So that's the problem. I think John is annoying. I think that there's nothing subtle about this book, which is interesting because Tom Taylor is usually very good at that stuff.
That is a good point, actually.
But everything is sort of hitting you over the head. His relationship, his sexuality, his political views. It's all very obvious and in your face. And I don't know. It's not connecting. I don't know why.
I gotta say, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I was going to sound that way. It is a very millennial book.
No, I think it's actually is it millennial or is it Gen Z?
Yeah, it's very Gen Z.
This might be. I think this is. I think this is younger.
That's what it is. No, you're right. I
think this is younger than me.
You're right though, but it is one of those things where like your politics and your feelings and your identity and all of those things are up front. It informs everything that you do in every way that you define and present yourself. Which is again not a criticism.
Yeah, the HR woman at Mythic Quest hates this book.
Right.
Just because it's all up in its feelings.
It's interesting to think for me to like, well, does that mean it relates to people, or if you're like a Gen Z person, you're like, oh, this old person also doesn't get it. This boomer, 45.
Maybe I don't know. The couple of things that are still working for me about this book is I like how John Kent has empathy for people in a way that is true to the idea of being Superman, but feels distinct a little bit from the way Clark does.
That to me could be a generational thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Superman comes from the strong silent man.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's good. It's more paternal. Like Clark is more paternalistic, which is obvious, I think. But and whereas John, I think, it just comes at it from a slightly different angle. I also have like a this probably isn't a weird affection, but I don't know another adjective to use for it, for Superman stopping a natural disaster, not like and he's stopping a monster in this issue, but the monster at one point causes a tidal wave, and like Superman solving those kinds of problems, where like how do I solve a force of nature, have always been fun for me, because I think some of the earliest Superman stories that I consumed as a kid were him, stopping the volcano or turning the tide of a mighty river, that kind of stuff. Seeing the John Kent version of him working with Aqualad to stop a tidal wave from hitting Metropolis, using a combination of like the Hulk slap and to create a force wave and the freeze breath to freeze parts of it, I just thought cool. I like when he has to solve a problem that's more than just punching a bad guy. But
they didn't stop it.
Yeah.
And that's what bothers me, is that it feels like the book is telling me that he made the right choice to not kill the monster, and then he let thousands of people die. And I feel like that's a problem, because while the monster might not have been evil, it's a choice. It's the whole, kill one person to save the situation. And here it seems like they're saying to me the right choice was to let the monster live. And that really bugged me.
Superman can't ever make that choice. He has to save it. Like Superman can't make the choice to let anyone die, and so his thing is that he can't. Now, you got two ways to go about this. This is either a newer sort of version of looking at that, or B, this is a developing and growing Superman who's learning how to make those decisions and what his values are. He's not Clark Kent. So, and at the same time, like, the monster's not a monster, it's just a big animal who's there and who is scared. I also like the why can't you just pick him up? And he's like, it would be like a needle going through whatever it was. I like the sort of physical aspect of that. And I think you're right. Like the natural disaster element of the thing was kind of interesting.
I don't love all the Gamora stuff with Bendix.
I don't care about any of this stuff. Yeah.
As much as I loved like the Authority and what was it, Stormwatch? Was that the I liked all those series from Warren Ellis back in the day, but it's not. This isn't that.
No, I also really like the drawings of the monster. All the disaster art was fantastic. Like the creature looked like a big sea creature, realistic enough but still huge and impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I like things about it, but I didn't like everything about it.
I can appreciate that.
Are you both still going to stay on it? I'm going to be reading the next one, and that's it. I think, unless it's really good.
I'm fully sticking with it. Because Tom Taylor is sort of, I think he's my favorite writer at DC right now. If I had to, throw one out there, so I'll stick with whatever he's doing, just out of some faith.
I mean, his even if I don't like this thing, his track record is amazing, and I don't hate this. I'm not like, no, this is the worst thing ever. It's just weird, and it might not be for me. I want to take a quick second to beg. No, I want to thank the patrons. You can go to patreon.com/iFanboy to directly support the show. And I was thinking about this morning, and I was like, I don't ever want to half-ass my reading of the comics and go through anything for no other reason than the people who are listening would be disappointed. And I think it is so fascinating and humbling that people will be like, yes, I will send you some money so you keep doing this thing, and that really keeps me going. Like when it's 1 a.m. and I'm like, I gotta read more comics, I don't skip over them. I push my way through them, and then I'm tired in the morning because of it. But it's a cool position to be in. So if you do that, A, you have my eternal support, obviously, but B, you can unlock shows for everybody, and the amount of shows that we have to do now, we really shot ourselves in the foot here.
Too many shows.
It's a lot of shows. There's the Talksplode, the Booksplode, the Media Splode, your various splodes of the Azores, and no, that's not a thing. And it's a great community. It always has been a great community. It's like this little leftover thing, that has been part of iFanboy forever. That just is all like the community is really the big part of it, and this is a big extension of that. I'm sorry, I'm feeling apparently gushy this morning about that kind of thing, but genuine things I was thinking this morning. So get over to patreon.com/iFanboy to see how you can be involved with that. There's hangout shows and everything. And again, thank you just for everybody who does that. There's iFanboy.threadless.com where you can get 12 designs on t-shirts and items of many, many stripes. Including our newest design, Gosh, Good Old Superheroes. I got to pick one of those up. I'm wearing my GDAT shirt right now, and it brings me such joy. I every time I pick it up, I'm like, oh, God, I love this. And I hope that they give you people out there some modicum of that joy. You can also go to ifanboy.com/support, or you can make direct donations via PayPal if you want to do that. That sort of virtual tip jar, as we've said many times before, without any of that other stuff going along. We appreciate that as well. All of that, being the idea that this is a small thing we do relative to other stuff, but it actually does take a heck of a lot of time and commitment. And sort of, so, your side on the other side of it is to, show that you support that. I don't know if we would keep doing it forever. I don't know if we'd be able to stop, but you're definitely keeping it going right now. And then finally, ifanboy.com/Amazon, where you can buy the books that we talk about on Booksplode. You'll find a link to the music in every show on the show page. You'll find a link to the pick of the week that you could buy digitally or buy a physical copy if for some reason you can't find a comic store around you, or you don't go to, the last one here, bookshop.org. We've partnered with bookshop.org to help out local bookstores. So if you want to buy books and you don't want to go through that one big retailer, and you can help out some of these local, smart, important, vibrant, necessary businesses of local bookstores, that's what bookshop.org is for. You'll find the links where they fit in on the website. And we're very happy about that. Let's move along to more comics. Oh, look, I just saw what he put in at the end of this part. Okay, go on.
Who put the Avengers on this list?
I did.
All right.
I did.
Just explain yourself.
I kind of like it. I like it's getting like wacky. It's getting like crazy wacky. And for some reason, I like the idea that first of all, for the first time in my life, I kind of understand what a deadlock is, and I never have. I like that there's some sort of culmination that is happening as a result of this celestial body that they're living in, and the thing that's going on. They blew it up. I thought they were going to get up and it was going to walk around, but I don't know. I feel like, after all these things and not quite being into it, Aaron is still leaning into this, and he's going to make his thing work. And I've grown a sort of affection for this team to a certain extent. I really like, listen, baby Thanos is kind of dumb, but he's written really well with the construction of what he is, and his fight with Neymar was engaging to me.
The art was terrific. Juan Furikiri is great.
And I feel like there's very few moments in this book where the team has been a team. And I think that's an issue I'm having with it, is they just aren't together and doing Avenger. They're not assembling. They're disassembled, if I could, coin a phrase.
Excellent. That's an excellent bit of criticism.
I really like the idea of the Avengers 1 million BC. For whatever reason, that to me is in that wacky Jason Aaron territory in a way that works. But I feel like we're just not getting to what the point of it is quickly enough for me to maintain my interest.
I think I have adjusted my expectation of what I think that this book is. It's taken me a while, apparently 53 issues. And I've enjoyed parts of it, haven't enjoyed other parts of it, but I've never thought about dropping it. I just keep reading it because there's at the core, there's stuff here that I like. I think that it doesn't necessarily all hold together really well, but there's still been enough for me to enjoy. And now that we're not talking about the vampires and we're not dealing with, whatever else, at least this is a bunch of Avengers in the Avengers Fortress, and they're fighting extra bad versions of Marvel villains. There's a super evil Doom.
It makes me think, what you just said there reminded me, I think one of the problems I have with this book is that nothing is kind of stuck. We started introducing the whole vampire conflict, and that just sort of came and went. It feels like there's been a lot of ideas, and none of them have really been fully explored. What happened to the bear guy?
Yeah.
And his whole betrayal of the team. It just,
I think that stuff
it feels
all
like we're moving
off
at a
into
freight
other
train.
books.
I don't know.
Right, like Ghost Rider's not in this issue because he's off doing another thing in a different alternate reality, and
I haven't fully formed my idea about it, but I think I'm trying to figure out why. We've been trying to figure out why for 53 issues this book hasn't been connecting with us the way we thought it would, and
But you're still reading it.
Yeah, like you said, I've never thought about not reading it.
That's interesting.
It's weird.
That's,
I think I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. But I enjoyed this one, and that's kind of where I'm taking it day by day. I was like, it was big and crazy, and there was explosions, and in big Neymar fight where he could kind of, beat the shit out of somebody who also happened to be a child. So
good Neymar week.
I'm legitimately bummed the Celestial Mountain got blown up. I kind of liked the Avengers base being a giant Celestial. That was like, there was a couple issues back where they had the map, the layout. Love a layout. That's cool.
I feel like as we're coming to the end of Jason Aaron's run, he's clearing the decks. Yeah, it's been his thing for his run, and let the next person define their whole situation. But speaking of day to day and month to month and week to week, is Batman Catwoman number 10 as we are now 2 issues away from the end of this whatever this is. I don't know. What are we talking? I mean, Clayman is finally back. He's been gone for like 4 issues.
This is the only issue he's done in a year.
Yeah, I can't get into this book. I don't know why.
I again, it's almost the same thing with Avengers. Although I haven't been as lost. I think Liam Sharp was totally wrong for this book. I think
totally wrong. Really it was a bad idea.
Sidetracked.
He's a great artist. It was a bad idea.
Totally wrong. And yeah. So having Clayman back on, actually, I understood what was going on. I think this was a pretty clear book that was still conceptually bold. You had 3 different timelines going on. It seems like they're going to tell us that Joker is Helena's father, which is pretty bombshelly, but also very overdramatic comic booky. I think this is another one. Like, I enjoyed this issue. I'm not entirely sure how it all fits together, and because of the release schedule, it's been so disjointed that it kind of never had a chance. But I don't have a dog in this fight, so I just kind of like watching the craft and the experiment of the thing.
Yeah, that's the real thing is
too.
There's no emotional, I think, resonance because of the delays and because it's so strange. I did find myself, impressed with the structure of this issue, where not each page, but pages would take place over 3 time periods, and the conversations would be consistent throughout. And that was interesting. And I love Clayman. I think the book is 100 times better when he's drawing it, even at that point, still it doesn't totally work. And that's fine. Tom King has done a lot of great 12-issue stories, and this is one that I think hasn't worked, and it's unfortunate because it's a Batman. He came to prominence for most people through his Batman run, but.
And I feel like I remember something from Josh's Talksplode where this is the story that he was planning on ending his run with, his main Batman run with, or is this?
Yes, it would have been. It's supposed to be in the main book. Yes, yeah. But I don't know if it
Black Label.
I mean, it got torpedoed in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a tidal wave sort of leaning against everything. I mean, the delays in the art.
And who knows if this had been the same story if he'd played out in the regular book or not, but. His run was supposed to end on the main book with this Batman Catwoman story, but
I do think it's gone on too long. I think that it didn't need to be 12 or whatever it is.
And I think the thing about it that doesn't work for me is I have a hard time buying that Joker and Selena Kyle have this like deep relationship that is important to either of them in a way that just doesn't ring true to me.
Yeah.
And this book hasn't convinced me that it
I like the
should.
contrast of all of it. I think it's a natural extension of the fact that Batman and Catwoman would have a relationship, and she is a criminal, and this is like pulling. Well, what does that mean? Because she, they say, well, we used to all the villains used to sort of be connected to each other and hang out. And I was like, that's true. That is what it's like. And I feel like this is just like not a treatise, but like a rumination on that idea. Like, well, what if you bring this out? And so. I don't think of this as canon. I don't think of this as the main Batman story. I never thought of that, even on his main run. And so all that said is like, well, game it out. What does this look like? What does it play like? And I find that part interesting. And I think that's part of what's interesting for Tom. I think, it's like, well, what is the natural extension of a lot of these if you really think about it? And that's the other side of that is I don't think it always makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, because it's anyway. I think it's exploring the idea that like there have been a lot of women in Bruce Wayne's life that he has loved and have loved him back. And some of those would have been, more appropriate choices for him as a crime fighter and a hero. And yet he keeps circling back around to this woman who is a thief and a crook. And it's an interesting juxtaposition.
We don't make the best choices.
Well, especially since there's a movie coming out.
On to other
Batgirls. Anybody else reading Batgirls? Batgirls number 3 this month.
I am not.
Should I?
right?
Jorge Corona is the artist, and he was the artist on that
Middle West.
Scotty Young book, Middle West. And Becky Cloonan and that's Michael W. Conrad are the writers who are writing Wonder Woman, and it's been fun. There's been something that keeps me from loving it, but I love that there's books like this where you got a guy like Jorge Corona, who is not your typical DC House style artist, doing a book that stars Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain and Barbara Gordon as this little team of Batgirls running around. And there's always something really visually interesting about each issue of this book so far. I mean, there's only been 3 issues, but the art's terrific. The story's been fun. They're being tormented by these villains and these new villains. There's a hacker tormenting Barbara, and there's this guy, an artist villain who's tormenting Cassandra and Stephanie, and he's sort of like Scarecrow light. And they're all trying to figure out how to be in this new role. And I like Cassandra and Stephanie's relationship, where Stephanie's the motor mouth and Cassandra's the quiet one. It's fun, But Barbara runs into an ex-boyfriend, and they tease her over the comms about it, and they have a nice relationship. I like that. This would be a fun TV show of these 3 women, trying to figure it out. The only criticism I have, and this is not really this book, it's just in general, I think Cassandra talks too much.
Because she used to literally not be able to talk.
She's not supposed to talk at all.
Right. Yeah, I think if they want to give her an arc, I think she should say no more than 3 words at a time. Because
she was only taught the language of violence, right?
Violence and human body language. She can speak. She can, that was her whole thing, was she could read body language like language. But they have her talk, not as much, but, like I'm looking at a page here where she's got 3 consecutive word balloons and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 words. Like, that's too many. Too many. But it's beautiful. Just at least check it out for the art. I love the fact that there's places now in DC for guys like Jorge Corona to draw a Batman book, which is
cool.
Do you remember how in the early days of Grant Morrison's JLA run, Martian Manhunter would always have to link them up psychically so they could communicate, and now it's just we accept that you can have a small thing in your ear that keeps us all connected, and you can just keep a conversation going even when in the middle of a superhero fight?
Yes.
Yes.
I feel like if you told me that was going to be a thing back in the day, I would have been annoyed by it, and yet I most of the time love it. I love that the characters can keep communicating at a distance no matter what's going on in the book.
I think there'd be more interference. I mean, here's us, right? We're having communication issues today because of technology. Yeah. I would think that would affect they probably have a better network or whatever, but there's no perfect network. Or
even just you're getting punched in the head. The earbud might just fall out.
Sure.
The only perfect network is John Jones's mental network.
Well, then there needs to be more John Jones.
Even that is subject to win, whether he gets exposed to fire or not.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. That's a match could fuck that whole thing up. They can't work in Southern California.
It's true.
Fire kills everything. It doesn't just kill Martians. If I was lit on fire, I would also be damaged. Yeah.
Well, it's not just lit on fire,
but
it freaks near fire.
It freaks him out.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it freak you out if somebody was
fire issues.
Putting a torch in your face?
No, he sees fire and he screams in a high
pitch voice. You can't even make a fire in your fireplace around him.
Well, I have a gas fireplace.
It's like some people with spiders.
Yeah.
Well,
so should we just jump to the patron pick? So it's time for the patron pick?
Actually, there's another book on the list. Now, I have a pitch. Let's see let's see what you guys think. All right, maybe not Morphin Corner or Power Corner. How about Mighty Morphin Rotunda? Can I get a rotunda?
No, you don't get a whole rotunda.
How about a gazebo? A porch?
You can have the Saban outhouse.
Mighty Morphin porch?
No.
That's so much better than what I was gonna say. That's so good. I just want you to know
we're gonna stroll on over to Saban's outhouse and talk about Mighty Morphin issue 16, the Eltarian War. I'm gonna roll with it. I'm fine. I've used outhouses. I'm from West Virginia. You think I've ever been in an outhouse?
I just want to make it clear to Mr. Saban, this is not an attack on you. Extremely rich and powerful, Mr. Saban.
This is issue number 16, and I believe this is the final issue written by Ryan Parrott based on something I saw him say on Twitter. The story is similar to Batman Catwoman, where we're jumping around in time, and there's the 3 Eltarians. We've learned that Zed is actually an ancient Eltarian who worked with Zordon back when he was part of the Guardians as empowered by the Eltarians. But the thing that was really interesting to me is the Rangers finally get a handle on fighting these Imperials, which are these very, very powerful cosmic beings that sort of Galactus level threats. And the way they do it is they got all their Zords going. They got the Mega Thunder Zord, they got the Omega Zord, and they got the White Tiger Dragon Zord, which is a combination of the White Tiger Zord and the Dragon Zord, which is fucking awesome. And Drakon shows up, so we know how that's gonna go. So he's you guys know that Drakon is Tommy from an alternate timeline where he went evil, and he brings with him a bunch of space vampires, and they're able to use the space vampires to drain the Imperial enough to kill him. And it ends with Zed.
Feels.
Yeah, it ends with Zed having been stabbed and Zordon being stabbed and under the control of Zed, but the Power Rangers have succeeded against the Imperial. So one threat down, but more threats remain, I think.
This is how I felt reading that Hawkeye book.
Rad teens with attitude. You could call it Ratitude. I wouldn't put it against you for calling it Ratitude. And I'll see you guys next time we head out to the Rotunda.
It's not a Rotunda. No.
Connor.
It's an outhouse from the 1800s.
All right, well,
outhouse.
I've wiped and I'm done. Let's move on.
Are we sure this is a real thing he's even talking about?
That's what's great about it, kind of. Is he could be making all of these words up, and I would be like, sure, that sounds fun.
I get some support in the Discord. Not a ton, but some.
I am 50-50 on whether he's just trolling us.
I would be okay if that was the case as well.
Sure, at least there's some artistic integrity in that.
Those are the books we wanted to talk about. It was a light week, not a ton of books, which was a nice little reprieve because the last couple weeks have been heavy. But the patrons over at patreon.com/iFanboy, all iFanboy patrons can vote to add a book to the rundown. And this week, the iFanboy patrons decided to give us a second X book in a row. Last week's we had The Excellence. This week, The Secret X-Men #1, the one-shot from Teenie Howard, Francesco Mobili, Jesus Bertoff, and Clayton Cowles. And this book made me angry.
Go on.
I just did not like reading it. I didn't like the art. I didn't like the writing. I hated the main character. I was angry reading it. I was like, when is this over? It was exercise. It kept going. It was never ending. I didn't like the colors. I didn't like the art. I didn't like anything about it.
Sticking with it?
It's just one shot.
It's the joke. I came to a conclusion because Connor early on said this is Secret X, and I went, okay. And what I think is, like, people know what I'm gonna say about it, but I do always. This is why I had that thought earlier about the patrons. Is I was like, okay, I have to try, I have to pay attention, I have to go in with an open mind. And I think the problem that keeps happening with these X-Men books, and I'm going to keep this to since Hickman's thing, is that this is an issue #1. It's it's clear to me that X-Men creative and editorial have completely eschewed the idea of trying to get anybody into these books in a way that don't know it already. Because this is what always happens in these books, is that 45 characters show up. I don't know who any of them are. I don't know anything about their relationships with each other or their personalities. Other than having different drawn heads, everybody's the same. I feel like there probably is something there, but I'd never get to it because it's just too many moving pieces swirling around, and nobody tries to ingratiate a new reader, which I kind of am.
I actually had that same thought because there's a on page 8 is the hero shot of the team. And so the backstory here is recently in the real world, there was a fan election to add a character to the X-Men team, like the main X-Men team. And it ended up being Polaris. And we all knew it was going to be Polaris because she was the most popular character on that list. And so they're taking everybody else who was a nominee, and they are the secret X-Men. They decide, fuck it. We may not have been elected to the regular team, but we're going to be our own team of X-Men. And I kind of like that idea. Actually, that was my favorite thing about the whole book was, why do they get to say who's the quote-unquote X-Men? We're going to be the X-Men too. So I like that. But there's a hero shot on page 8, and I was like, well, that's Banshee, and that's Strong Guy. And that's Forge, and I don't know who anyone else is. And they didn't ever
They're not
told
telling you.
No, they said it on the page before. didn't they?
They don't tell me who those names correspond to who's on the page.
You can, all right. So come on, I know Boom Boom.
I don't know.
Hisako, Armor.
I don't know.
Marrow's the lady with bones on her face. That's
I know
scans.
that much. You just told me everything I know about her.
The problem I had was, Roberto's putting the team together and he's talking about like all the people being sexy, and for whatever reason, as I was reading it, he said, I want Boom Boom on the team because she's sexy. I want Cassidy on the team, or I want Banshee on the team because he's sexy. But I missed, for whatever reason, I just read the pronoun as she, because isn't Banshee's daughter also named Banshee?
I don't know.
You're asking the wrong people.
Anyway, I for whatever reason, I don't have a deep connection with the character, but I think Strong Guy is ridiculous, and I kind of love him.
I mean, I loved him in Peter David's X Factor and multiple man books.
For whatever reason, I I couldn't figure out like why. I mean, I know they were the original New Mutants, but like the relationship between Sam Guthrie Cannonball and Roberto just didn't work in a way like they were. I don't know. The way they talked to each other, it was like
kid and a space apartment.
Well,
are they in a relationship? I don't understand.
No.
Yeah.
Well, they're both they're all both dating women.
Right.
Oh,
that's
I
what
thought they were in a relationship for sure.
No. He was in the beginning. Sunspot's trying to sleep with those two Shi'ar women, and Boom Boom keeps talking about his girlfriend. He keeps talking about his girlfriend. Oh, no, not Boom Boom. Cannonball keeps talking about his girlfriend.
Cannonball, yeah. Cannonball's not making enough pasta to feed everyone in the apartment. By the way, that was upsetting.
And the thing is, like, I have I've been reading the regular X-Men book. I read Marauders. I gave Excalibur a try, which I think was Teenie Howard's book in the beginning. Like, I have a vague sense of what's going on here, but I was still completely lost as to why I should care. And also, is Sunspot supposed to be this annoying? Or is this a new characterization? Because I could not stand him through the entire issue.
Good question.
He was obnoxious. I was wondering why he was leading the team. Why anyone would follow him? Why wasn't Forge leading the team? He seems to be the only one who knew what he was doing. Yeah. Like, it just was such a strange comic.
I never got a foothold, and they never tried to give me one. That's what bugged me.
Yeah. And they also did Cannonball and Sunspot powers as if they were both just kind of versions of the Human Torch, which isn't what they are. There was also some really annoying stuff about like the way they did stuff with space. Like I don't know that Cannonball's powers work in space if it's fire. And how does Marrow's like bone astronaut armor? That was annoying.
I like that there was comic book science in there. I like that like they were playing it fast and loose with space as like if you're gonna do it, like this is one of the things I liked. I think was Marrow's thing. It's like, to try this out. Like I'm gonna make it, and no, it doesn't need to make sense. But it's superpowers, none of that makes sense anyway. Like I can.
But then Banshee screams in space, which like again, you need air for sound to travel.
Yeah. No, I did notice that.
I was confused because when Sunspot, who I know nothing about, and I've never known anything about the New Mutants, and the New Mutants is according to the X-Men. I never read after the early '90s Rob Liefeld. Never read any of that stuff. I don't know who any of these characters are. I know nothing about them. When he activates his powers, I thought, oh, Nightcrawler's here. I was like, oh no, wait, that's not Nightcrawler. Like it was such a it was almost like aggressively like if you don't know who these people are, you're out of luck.
And I don't know who Deathbird is. They said that name more times than anything else, and I had no idea who that character was.
Right, and the issue with the page where Sunspot's powers fully activate is like that is what Sunspot looks like when his powers activate, but I don't know why his hair changed, and that made it just super confusing. I also don't know why Strong Guy's spacesuit, when he comes out wearing the spacesuit, it's got tiny little hands hanging down from his stomach.
Forge made him a suit from all the suits because they were too small. Forge quickly sewed them all together, or whatever.
Yeah,
he says it. He says Forge had to put me a suit together for me with all the other suits.
Gotcha.
They looked great.
For whatever reason, I didn't get that. But there were just I feel like there were a lot of storytelling and characterization issues throughout. Unfortunately,
look, take your eyes, defocus on the page, and just flip through it, and look at those masses of word balloons explaining shit to us without saying anything. All through it. It is a lot of explanation, a lot of swirling crap that just didn't come together. And I genuinely tried to make sense of it because I thought, this is I'm not going to just write this off in the beginning, but I was lost the whole, and I'm not dumb. I'm also not unfamiliar with X-Men, but there was no setup. There was no craft here. And I mean, it's what Connor's. It's aggressively saying, if you don't know it, you're lost. And so I'm like, all right, I guess I'll read this. But I didn't feel like I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been fairly up on Hickman's X-Men. So for me to be completely and utterly lost means someone who's not up on that is even in a worse position. The other thing is like, and this has been through all the X-Men books. Is I've been skipping these emails and letters and things in the middle of the books.
Yeah, the email I bumped on. I did read it and I bumped on it because like it's super tiny font up at the top and bottom corners that it's a draft, so it's not an email that was supposed to have been sent, but the idea in the email is integral to the story itself, and it was just written in a way of like, no one writes an email like this. I've never written or received an email that was written with this tone of like, let me recap what happened to us yesterday so that we can then discuss what to do about that tomorrow, even though like, oh, you think this thing happened, but it didn't. And I'm like, no human being, maybe it's a mutant thing, no human being writes an email like this. The end.
It was a word scramble. I was like, I can barely read the sequential pages. I'm not playing a puzzle in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're all cop-outs. They're all cop-outs.
Yeah.
I was so annoyed at that. I was like, I want this to be over, and you're going to treat me like I'm a child in a diner? I just tell me who the fucking characters are and why I should care. Oh, it's rough. I'm more mad now because you guys agreed with me. I thought we were going to get here, and I'd be like, I don't know what's going on. I'd be like, no, there was this and that. But you're saying this is what it is, and this is professional work. Shouldn't be.
They put the dramatis personae in the beginning, which to do through all the X-Men books, but they're tiny little black and white boxes. And so, it doesn't correspond to anything in the issue itself. It was rough.
Still, comics are always still going to come down to show, don't tell.
Yeah, yeah.
And it helps to have something to refer to, but that doesn't mean that the text doesn't have to do any of the work. When I mean the text, I mean the actual sort of story pages. You have to do the work. It's a first issue. I remember like a long time ago when I was trying to write comics, I showed Joe Casey something I did, and he goes, you got to have them say all these names. Like he just because he came from an earlier time, like you have to, this is the thing that the guys from the generation, who had worked before, in the early 90s and before that, they all knew the stuff that they had learned in the 50s and 60s is like, there's certain rules and they're not necessarily natural to trying to do your fake screenplay movie dialogue. Yeah. But you have to set things up. You have to set that table.
Everybody says each other's names.
But it's better than being lost.
Yeah.
Yes. And you've got to tell me something about each of the characters. There were how many of these? I'm looking at a page of just X-Men. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 characters.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about them. I thought that the two guys were a couple.
Well, there was a whole thing, about like Roberto wants this woman named Tempo on the team, who is not a character I have any familiarity with. And he's like, yeah, because then if we like screw stuff up, she's got like time powers. And I was like, okay, so I guess Tempo is like temporal or whatever. But apparently he didn't understand what her powers were, and they ended up using them differently in the story in a way that like, I don't know what her powers are either. Like you didn't tell me what the misconception was, and you didn't tell me what the correction was. You just did it, and I don't understand what happened on either level,
right.
And it was super frustrating.
I want to stop finding ways saying the same thing while we're griping about this, the unclarity of this book. I do want to make a rule. Here's my rule. No superhero team in a 20-page comic book is allowed to have more than 6 members unless you are a master writer. If you're Grant Morrison, you can have 7 to 8.
Are we going to add that
to that's dicey.
iFan gripes? 6+ teams?
No, unless they're like elemental to comics, like if this was like, the Avengers that we all like, it was Captain America and Iron Man and Thor, like people everyone knows. You don't have to do the heavy lifting is one thing, but Tempo and Marrow and people, unless you're a hardcore X-Men fan, Armor, I don't know who these people are. Smasher,
and maybe that's. By the way, this seems to be a feature of most X-Men books that I have to read. Is that like this is just how it is, and maybe that's what X-Men people like, and maybe they've all just accepted like we're not going to add X-Men fans at this point. So, but it keeps happening.
Ratings
6.
Give him a 6.
Not 6.
You're giving it a 6 out of 5.
No.
Ratings.
You get points deducted for each So if even if I'd given it a 5, there are 4 too many members, so it gets a 1.
My iFan grumble, I think I would go a team up to 7 just because sometimes you want the imbalance, but I see your point, Josh.
Right. Yeah. What I said was that I think 7 feels a little too much, but I know that Grant Morrison did it to great, as better as well as anybody had with his JLA run.
But with icons. So there's a difference.
Exactly.
Cannonball. I like Cannonball. He's not an icon.
Yeah,
ratings out of 5.
I've seen him 3 times. 2.
1.5.
1.75.
There you go. Don't need to ask sticking with it because it is a one shot. There's nothing to stick with.
I wasn't gonna go with the average of your scores, but when I was legitimately debating between 1.5 and 2, and you guys gave me permission to just split the middle.
Yeah. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Every patron can add a book to the rundown, but patrons who give the $5 or higher level get their own superpower live on the show. Let's do it.
Sam Durose or Durose. I don't usually go blue, but he's like Black Bolt, but with farts. Black Bolt, and he's got to watch his ass. It's not like you think you're in a meeting and you've got to hang on. Like, he can't eat pretty much anything. Like, he's got to stay away from fresh vegetables. Forget chili. He could blow the world up.
Is it planet-ending power like Black Bolt's? Because he can't help that. That's natural biology.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like you also learn incredible control.
That's what I was going to ask. Does he have Black Bolt's fortitude?
It's not the force. It's the audible. So you have to control the sound. You see,
okay.
And this is why I don't go blue very often, because I think it's quite cheesy, but it made me laugh when I wrote it down. So,
did you just write down Black Bolt farts? Is that what you did?
No, what I did was I wrote like Black Bolt, but with, and I stared at for a while, and I was like, I can't think of anything that makes me laugh like farts does.
Yeah,
it was like I like Black Bolt with, and then I was like, well, there's nothing else. I originally was like, well, I can't do that, so I wrote scratching. You can't scratch because it would be too loud, but I would have felt like I was avoiding the obvious choice, which there. But listen, with great power must come great control and responsibility. So
there are a few times in our relationship where I've tried to explain some comic book thing to my wife where she's been as delighted as she was to learn that Black Bolt's real name is Blackagar Boltagon.
Blackagar Boltagon.
It's just one of the greats.
I think about it often.
I feel like this next patron shouldn't get a power.
Yeah, it is confronting.
Yeah, it could be disqualified.
But it was written this way, and so it was. I wrote it out that way, and I assigned it to Connor on purpose.
You know what? I thought maybe this patron is identified as Mesa called Micah. Mesa, your humble patron.
It's a symbiont circle, Connor.
You said it. You don't have to say it again. You said it.
Connor, it's a symbiont circle. You must understand that. They give us money, and then we give them content. It's a symbiont circle.
Micah, in any situation or any conversation, becomes an instant expert in the field of whatever's being talked about.
Oh,
so it's just a dude?
It's just
So
just me.
But legitimately, worst. So Micah could be in a government meeting and becomes an instant expert on foreign policy, or at Capitol Records and become an instant expert on producing music or music marketing, whatever the meeting happens to be. But as soon as he leaves the meeting, so does the knowledge. As soon as he leaves the conversation, so does the knowledge. Whatever's being discussed, he becomes an expert in that discussion.
Do you think that people accept it, or they just think, oh, this guy's full of shit, he doesn't know anything?
Well, he clearly knows what he's talking about. From the conversation.
Right. Well, but people, there's ego, there's whatever. It'd be best if they knew that was his power.
Yeah, that's true.
Because otherwise he would just sound like an asshole.
Would it cause a hemorrhage if he had to discuss at length the Dunning-Kruger effect, the idea that like people who don't know much about anything, think they're like they know a little about something, think they're an expert relative to experts who understand the limits of their own knowledge.
He'd become an expert in that theory. Like he's legitimately an expert in whatever's being discussed.
Is the paradox is the paradoxical nature of the Dunning-Kruger effect, like would that potentially hurt him?
No, he would just become an expert in that discussion.
I think it would. Right. I think it would hurt people's opinion of him, but maybe that's got to be some sort of sideways thing. Is that he's so correct that people can't help but understand and agree with him. Although in this world, I can't see that happening at all.
I was listening to a podcast where they improperly described the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it was like poetry in motion. I was like, well, that's exactly what
there was. I think about this a lot, and I know we've had a lot of diversions, but there was a thing on This American Life years and years and years ago, and it was a phenomenon that they dubbed American Jackass, and it was the idea that if you knew like a little thing about something, like if you go into a art museum and you look up at a Picasso and you happen to have read one thing about it, you talk about that like you're an expert. Oh, well, the blue here, they actually said is to represent, and you don't know anything else, but you present that you are an expert about it in that one, which I've been guilty of 1,000 times. We did a show actually.
All right.
I try not to be American Jackass. Anyway,
next one.
Paul Peterson has an amazing power, truly a gift, I think. Paul's left eye can transform into a telescope, and his right eye can transform into a microscope.
Oh.
And if he does both at the same time, he explodes.
Binoculars. He's got binoculars.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good answer. Way to go. Did you just get that part?
No, I've been thinking about this. I had a long drive yesterday. I was thinking about this a lot. I was thinking about how it'd work. Okay. But Paul, so like if it's a beautiful night out and Paul wants to see the moons of Jupiter, he can just close his right eye and just squint real hard with his left eye, and he can telescope it out and see into the distant cosmos. And if he's trying to like clean the kitchen counter and wants to see if there are any germs or bacteria still lingering, he just closes the left eye and squints real hard with the right eye, and he can microscopically see the surface of the countertop and know what's going on.
That's a great power.
I was really excited when I came up with it.
Yeah, I'm going to give you that.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks to Paul, Mesa called Micah, Mesa, your humble patron, and Sam for being patrons. Patreon.com/iFanboy. We have to skip the emails because we've gone long.
Yeah.
But contact@ifanboy.com is where you can write in to get your email on the show. Sorry for the ones we had in the script but didn't get to. We'll hopefully get to you next week. Also, you can write in for the Media Explode show. Just put that in the subject. Let's talk about other shows we've got coming up. Previous to this show, we had our Spider-Man No Way Home review, which I quite enjoyed, both the movie and the review. So you can find that back in the feed. This month, somehow in the next 2 weeks, we've only got 2 weeks left of the month, we have Talksplode coming to you. Josh's second part of his discussion with editor Will Dennis. It's in the can. It's going to come out. We have our Booksplode of the new Teen Titans, the Judas Contract. We have a Media Explode, which we're going to talk about the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1. And also we have the Animated Brain Trust talking about Catwoman Hunted. Somehow we have 4 shows coming up. They probably all won't come out in February because it just happened so much that way.
Time.
The viewers at home couldn't see it, but when you said there were only 2 weeks left in the month, my eyes visibly widened in panic.
Exactly. I don't know how that happened. But like we said last year, the shows may not come out on a straight schedule, but you will get 6 Booksplodes, you'll get 6 Talksplodes, and then the other shows will happen as they happen. And then also, the first week of March is the Batman release, and we'll figure out when that's going to happen. I'm probably going to try to see it Saturday morning when it's not super crowded, so maybe we'll get it out that next week. But we'll figure it out. We won't wait so long. Ryan, how is Science Sort of going?
Good. We recorded a really fun episode recently where we talked about we had an update on the Tonga eruption, that giant volcano that erupted in the South Pacific that like sent a shockwave around the entire atmosphere and created flooding in California. And talked about other things. I'm completely blanking on what we talked about in our last episode other than the Tonga eruption, but there was some climate change. There was some the James Webb Telescope. I think that's why I was thinking about telescopes. We talked about the deployment of the James Webb Telescope, talked about Lagrange points, what those mean, why you're able to park things in space in certain points between the Earth and the Sun. It was a really good discussion. I'm looking forward to getting it out there.
Awesome.
I find all of that quite fascinating. I gotta say. You can find all of our shows over at ifanboy.com, less fascinating, as well as our archive of much less fascinating comic book writing from our talented staff. You can find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out, so you can be prepared. You'd say, well, these guys like this book. I should read this. And then when I listen to the show, I will fervently agree or disagree, and it will add a whole other flavor to things. Or just don't bother. Go to iFanboy. At iFanboy on Twitter or at iFanboy Comics on Instagram to see what that is. You can follow us individually, CS Kilpatrick, J.A. Flanagan, and Ryan Haupt on Instagram. You can subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/ifanboy to keep up to date with the old video show re-uploads. The full-length shows are all uploads. We're just doing minis. This past week, we had Brian Posehn.
Nope.
I didn't change this.
Nope.
This is the worst script I've ever done. To be fair, I wasn't even supposed to be here today.
Pick of the week, Wolverine 67 and Scott Chandler, who just had a birthday this week.
Oh. He did.
San Diego
He turned
Comic-Con.
50.
Yeah. Scott Chandler at San Diego Comic-Con 2008. So another Comic-Con interview and Josh's Wolverine Pick of the Week review.
So that tells me that when we talked to him, he was 38. And
Yes.
boy, the distance between 38 and 50 feels like quite a ways, but the dates on that do not suggest that. So just smoke him if you got him.
Yeah. If you like the show, consider leaving a review or a star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. That helps people find podcasts, helps all the shows you listen to, Science Sort of, any podcast you listen to, please consider leaving a review or star rating. It helps the algorithm, and the all-knowing algorithm is how we survive. So that's, even better than that's word of mouth. If anybody asks what podcast you listen to, it always helps to spread the word, and we do appreciate that. And that's it for this week's show. Put a bullet in it. Thanks for listening. I'm Connor.
I'm Josh.
And I remain Ryan. We'll see you next week. You please just stay safe out there. Don't slip on the ice. Wear a mask. Do all the good things for other people.